On This Week in Enterprise Tech, the onion gets spoiled, networks get flashy, the FCC loves SIP, and we're screencasting. Twice on the set.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Enterprise Tech is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twice. This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 77, recorded January 27, 2014. Screencasting. This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by Jira, an Atlassian product. Jira is the project management solution for your team's planning, building, and launching of great products. To learn more about Jira and try it free for 30 days, visit Atlassian.com/Twice. And by RingCentral. The cloud-based phone system we use just got better with the launch of Meetings, the full-service video conferencing feature. Zero startup cost, and RingCentral starts at under $25 per month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial and buy one desk phone and get a second phone free up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Twice, This Week in Enterprise Tech. It's the show dedicated to the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and the geek who just wants to know how the world is connected. I'm your host, Father Robert BALLECER, the digital Jesuit, your guide to all things in the enterprise. But of course, I don't do it alone. I'm joined by an all-star cast of geeks, starting with my good friend, Mr. Brian CHEE, the geek in paradise, the director of the Advanced Network Computing Laboratory in Honolulu, Hawaii. Brian, how are things over in Honolulu?
Honolulu is slowly going back to normal after the deluge by the Pro Bowl. Had a great time, actually. I was using a Xeris array, and I was actually able to stream video from the field. Lots of fun.
Wait, you were at the Pro Bowl?
I was actually at the Pro Bowl.
What were you doing at the Pro Bowl?
I was supporting the Wi-Fi for the press room.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you know what? That's abuse of geek power. We're done with you. Let's go over to the next man, Mr. Oliver RIST, he is our version of Jiminy Cricket. He is the conscience of the tech world. He keeps us honest. Oliver, how are you?
I'm good, except, you keep saying Jiminy Cricket. You know that guy was a wuss, right?
Okay, so you're a Jiminy Cricket with teeth.
There you go. Thank you.
Got it. All right. So the die is cast. Let's get to it. We've got a couple of enterprise bites, starting with spoiled onion. Is the Tor network compromised? This comes out of a few researchers who were looking at the Tor exit nodes. Now, if you don't know what the Tor network is, it means you probably haven't been watching all the episodes of Twice. We talked about it quite extensively. The idea is you encapsulate your traffic within different layers of encryption, and you make sure that every node it goes through only knows the router it's coming from and the router it's going to. It's a good way to grant anonymity in the internet, keep people from backtracking the traffic. Well, one of the fears of people who use the Tor network is that what are called the exit relays, the connecting nodes between the Tor network and the open internet would be compromised. And if those nodes were compromised, people could do things like, sniff where the traffic was coming from. They could inject their own packets into that traffic. They could read it. They could change it. They could do all sorts of nasty things. Anything you might think about on the edge of a network. Well, these researchers took a look at 5,000 relays or so, saw that 1,000 of them at any given time were exit relays, and saw suspicious activity on 25 of them. Now, it should be noted that the Tor network is fluid. So when they say that they looked at 1,000 exit relays, they mean that they saw at any given time 1,000 relays that were the exit relays. And in actuality, there were probably 3,000–4,000 different exit relays, of which 25 were found to have suspicious traffic. Not necessarily malicious traffic, but suspicious traffic. Cheebert, let me throw this over to you first. The Tor network has been one of those things that has become more popular in the last year or so with the revelations about NSA spying. If it's broken fundamentally, if it's this easy to compromise the exit relays, does this kill it in its infancy?
Yeah, kind of. Why bother? If someone can track what you're doing just by compromising the exit relays, then why bother? But then again, I don't know a whole lot about the Tor network, so let's be truthful about that. All the stuff that I do on the network is either, it's stuff that I'm willing to fess up to.
Yeah, okay. Oliver, let me throw this over to you. When we talk about the Tor network, one of the things that we have to note is that people have caught, the FBI has caught suspects using the Tor network, not by compromising the exit relays, but by doing old-fashioned malware hacks. They infiltrated the servers that these people were accessing, installed malware, which would then go back to the client's computer, bypass the Tor network, and give them the actual IP address. Is it really necessary for us to violate the sanctity of the Tor network in order to do what basic police work on in an internet age?
I don't know, it kind of sounded like Brian, why not? We've done it everywhere else, and everything else has been violated. I don't see any reason why the Tor network should be excluded.
Right. Okay, I get that. Now, it should be noted that since the Tor network works like any other routed network in that it looks for the shortest possible path, the shortest possible latency to the next hop, those compromised exit relays, which may be injecting traffic, would, by their very nature, be slower than anything else on the network. And therefore, what the researchers found was that even with compromised exit nodes, exit relays, most likely there wasn't a significant amount of traffic passing through them, so there wasn't a significant amount of harm. But I think that this is a story we should keep our eye on, because as the Tor network becomes more and more popular, in fact, we're going to be building up an easy-to-use Tor mod in our Twit do-it-yourself show, Know How. This could be a growing story for the geek on the go. Now let's look at the next Enterprise Byte. Brian, flash. Yeah, that's right. We've got some vendors who are using Flash to increase the, let's just say the receptiveness of their audience to their newest offering. We've got a story here about how Amazon has added SSD to some of their compute nodes. They have released their dense compute nodes that can be rented for as little as $25 cents per hour for a single node, all the way up to thousands of nodes with thousands of cores, terabytes of RAM, and terabytes of SSD storage. The large node comes with a 160 gigabyte SSD, 2 Intel Xeon E5 CPUs with 15 gigabytes of RAM, and is quite flexible in that you can stack them up. The 8 extra large node that Amazon is offering comes with 2.56 terabytes of SSD, a 32-bit CPU core, and 244 gigabytes of RAM. Brian, I want to throw this over to you first, because Amazon is really starting to speed up what's available in their cloud compute offerings. I think the addition of an SSD was only natural. In your mind, because SSDs can offer a significant increase in the transactions, the ins and outs per second, is this going to kill off all other competition? If you're going to compete in the cloud storage space, will you need to start providing ultra-fast storage? Well,
as we start getting into things like virtual desktop, more and more people are doing more and more things with databases. The amount of RAM is going up. People are caching more stuff, but the hang-up has always been I/O. I/O has always been an extra issue when you're in a cloud, because you've got a couple of layers of abstraction. So by going to an SSD, that removes that. So it's not so much will the other cloud vendors catch up, because they're going to have to. They got to keep up with the Joneses. It's going to be more a matter of, now we're starting to talk about something fast enough that it's going to be able to keep up with your local data center. And that's kind of an interesting concept. Do we stay local or do we move to the cloud? I think the answer is going to circle around security, but now performance is not one of the arguments.
I like that. So it just boils down to security. If we could remove the performance factor from the equation, yeah, then people can just worry about whether or not the cloud, private or public, provides enough security. I want to go over to you, Oliver, because we've got a corollary story to this, and that is that Cisco released their brand new all SSD storage array. They have 2 arrays in the Invicta line. The first one is the Invicta C312-4SA. It's a 2U box that holds between 3 and 24 terabytes of SSD storage using standard 2.5-inch enterprise-class SSD storage boxes. Now, we've also got the Invicta scaling system, which is their big boy. That thing holds between 6 and 720 terabytes, taking up between 8 and 4 U of rack space. Now, both are managed by Cisco's USC Director, and they connect via either an 8 gigabit fiber channel or 10 gigabit Ethernet, and of course, you can stack those up to get aggregate flow. Now, this puts Cisco in direct competition with EMC, and relating to the last story, this also allows people to have a private storage, a private cloud solution with massive inputs, outputs per second. Does this change the business landscape at all? I mean, again, same question that I gave to Brian. Now that Cisco is doing all SSD for their high-end systems, and by the way, they start at $63,000, is this something that every other business in that field is going to have to follow?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more competition than just from the storage hardware guys, right? I mean, Brian can back me up. The last Windows Server marketing spiel in there had the fact that they moved all that stuff up to the software layer, so now you can get your own low-cost storage stuff, including SSDs, and build your own little storage devices on there with ultra-high fast, well, probably not as good as Cisco or EMC, but close, right? And using storage virtualization. So there's a lot more options for customers, and there's a lot more performance requirements. So yes, I would expect that to be something everybody has to follow.
Brian, tell me a little bit about that. So I wasn't in on the Microsoft presentation. They now offer you services. Well, they'll do the computing, but you can bring your own storage?
Yeah, a little of all of the above. You can actually mount storage across the WAN for clouds. The whole idea is Server 2012 R2 makes it dramatically easier to move your cloud images, move your machines back and forth between public and private clouds. Now, one of the ways they've done this and made it easier is by allowing you to mount your cloud images using SMB instead of something as expensive as Fiber Channel or iSCSI. And so by doing that, you can start doing some really interesting things, right down to Server 2012 R2 actually has BGP enabled as part of its suite of tools.
Suite of tools. I like it. All right, that's it for the Enterprise Byte. Coming right up, we're going to be talking to Karl AUERBACH, who has some concerns about the FCC move to standardizing on SIP voice over IP as the national standard. But before that, I want to take a moment to welcome an old sponsor, but one coming back after an absence, and that's Atlassian and their product, Jira. Now, if you don't know what Jira is, you gotta listen, because if you run an enterprise, if you run a collaborative effort, be it a coding enterprise or an enterprise that deals with IT, you need Jira. You just didn't know it. You see, Jira is one of the world's most powerful and customizable issue and project management systems. It easily captures and organizes your workflow so you can prioritize and take action on what's important while staying up to date with the activity going on around you. Jira allows you to easily capture, organize, and prioritize your team's issues, tasks, features, and bugs. This is absolutely vital. You need to know what they're doing, you need to know what they're working on, and you need to give them guidance when they need to work on something that's more pressing. Give your team a simple, intuitive interface for collaborating with each other in real time, and you can seamlessly integrate your planning documents, your backlog, your issues, and your code repository all on one platform. Jira lets you set up any business process that you can imagine so that your team works the way that they want, that they need. They let you define your own issues to track the information that matters most to your team. In other words, it's not just a single pane of glass. It's a single pane of glass that shows you the information you need the most. Jira lets you stay in the loop with notifications via email, chat, @mentions, or RSS, and monitor streams of activity or self-updating reports and dashboards so that you're always in the know. Jira lets you expand infinitely in any direction with thousands of Jira add-ons, including test management, time tracking, project management, and hundreds of other uses. If your issues involve code, Jira ties everything together from an initial planning document, the files and the change sets in your code repository, all the way through to deployment, so you can actually backtrack to find issues or to find places where the next project can benefit from some added efficiency. Jira's integration with Git allows teams to follow their code from development all the way through delivery in one system. You can even build Jira into a project yourself with the power of Atlassian's RIST APIs. Jira is flexible and simple enough for a 5-person startup, but powerful and reliable enough for a 100,000-person enterprise. Jira is used by over 25,000 companies, including 70% of the Fortune 100 and NASA itself. Jira sits at the heart of Atlassian's offerings for managing your entire application development process from concept to launch. So here's what we want you to do. If you run a collaborative effort, a team, maybe of coders, go to Atlassian.com/Twyet for more information on Jira. Monthly plans start at $10 a month for up to 10 users, and you can try it free for 30 days. Remember, Atlassian.com/Twyet and select Try It for free. That's Atlassian.com/Twyet. And we thank Atlassian for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now let's get right to it. We're welcoming back to the show expert Karl AUERBACH. Karl from Interworking Labs, how are you doing?
Okay, but I'm hardly an expert.
Yeah, partly. No, I'd say you're entirely an expert. You wrote a quick post that caught my fancy. You were commenting on the FCC moving towards standardizing on SIP-based voice communication. Now, the FCC is calling our current state of information technology and communication the fourth network revolution. That's sort of the in-house buzzword. Now, their literature is centered around the IP transition, and they want to make sure that the IP transition takes place across the entire country, and they want to standardize on SIP-based VoIP. That's voice over IP as the national standard. Sounds good to me, sounds fine to me. I don't see what the problem will be, but you have issues. Tell me what those might be.
More than issues, it would be a national disaster. The reason being is if SIP had a logo, it should be a series of concentric rings with an arrow dead center in the bullseye. Of all the protocols I have ever encountered, SIP is the easiest to take down. It's not that the basic structure of SIP is wrong. It's just that the means through which packets are encoded is horrific. It is like it's an invitation to coding errors. I've been to several SIP events, and I wrote test tools to test SIP implementations, and I pretty much brought down every single one that was there. And it wasn't hard. I didn't work very hard. If we were to adopt SIP on a national basis, we would have two kinds of problems. One is we would have continued failures because the introduction of new equipment would destabilize existing equipment. The second is we'd be opening the door open to hostile attack. It would be as if we reverted all our computers to be using Windows 3.1 or something like that. The reason being is that SIP is a hodgepodge. It's been said that a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee. Well, SIP very much is a design by a committee. It has a little bit of SMTP email structure, has a little bit of HTTP structure, it has a thing called session description protocol structure. People have tried to throw in XML and other encoding schemes. The net is that it has alternative ways of saying the same thing, and that means that, and it has no limits. So that means that the parser on receiving SIP messages has to be able to accept pretty much anything that's thrown at it, and it's unnecessarily complicated. For example, SIP looks like email to a certain extent, has lines that say to : something or other. Well, SIP allows white space around that colon. It allows unlimited white space around that colon. It allows the word to be expressed as the letter T, saving all of one octet on the network. It has line wrapping, so you can put line wraps on pretty much anywhere where you have white space. And then we have, of course, the problems with line wraps is character churn, line feed only. What happens if the line following doesn't match one? Isn't it really a continuation of what was there before? Well, the field links are sort of undefined. You can put in fields that are typically they're 16 to 64 bytes, but no problem. You can stick 32K down into one of them.
Hey, Karl, Karl, this is something that I find interesting, which is we have been playing with SIP at Interop, I think almost for a decade, right? Cheeber, we've been using session initiation protocol, correct?
Yeah, and we started off with things like the Avaya hybrid, which is partially SIP, partially H.264. And when I asked the Avaya guys why it was a hybrid, they said, well, because SIP just didn't have the features.
Oh, okay.
And they said,
yeah, okay, so we ran into this constantly, which is we had plain vanilla SIP hardware at iLabs. That's sort of like the sandbox, the little dream team of the Interop crew. And one of the things that I always heard from them was that SIP just wasn't very robust. Yeah, it could initiate the session. Yes, it could connect you. Yes, you could get VoIP traffic through that, but it didn't really allow for anything else. Now, Karl, is there any way to save SIP, or do we just need to look at an alternative to SIP?
Well, to save it, one would first have to go through and strip out most of the alternative ways. For example, I mentioned the 2: versus the T:. Get rid of the option. That's save a lot of coding errors. Get rid of line wrapping. We're talking about computers. Who cares about line wrapping? If you've got a line that represents a data field, make it one line. White space. Define your white space better, or better yet, nail it down so it's either a single blank. We're not talking humans here. Code that parses things has to be it is very susceptible to errors when you get these variations. They've got silly things in there, like, for example, in the URIs that define who you're calling. If you put a domain name, they allow an optional dot. Well, why? Are they trying to allow you to express fully qualified domain names, which implies that they're allowing calls without fully qualified domain names? And if you do calls without FQDNs, then you're inviting what essentially would be a SIP version of cross-site scripting. They just simply have to nail it down. Get rid of the dot, or make sure and just declare all names as being fully qualified. Don't have
Oliver,
this option.
I want to get Oliver in on this, because I think Oliver can give us a non-geeky view. Oliver, let's pull back from at the circuit board, at the code level, and give me more of an enterprise view of this issue. I think that a lot of executives are just assuming that whenever we're talking about VoIP, we're talking about SIP. I mean, they don't really know. They don't care. All they know is that they have voice over IP. They've got a converged network. They've got a network that transmits data and voice over the same wires, the same lines, the same adapters. Does this strike you as something that enterprise would get behind? If let's say there were a grassroots movement to tell the FCC, here's a friend brief saying you shouldn't use SIP, you should use this competing protocol that is a bit more secure, that is a bit more robust, would that be taken up, or do you think that would fall on deaf ears? Oh, you're muted.
There I am. Am I still muted?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, good. So first of all, I think you guys need to stop thinking about just yourselves, okay? The guys at the NSA are working really hard, day and night. I think you could just throw them a softball, let them crack into something that's a little bit easier, okay? I mean, you have a perfect opportunity here. Now you're trying to make them stay up all night with more pizza again. I don't think it's fair. You got to be a little more patriotic here. As far as enterprise executives go, God, look, I mean, Brian, you can tell me. I don't even know what protocol Link runs over. I mean, I know it supports SIP, but I don't know if that's the native one. But if you're an enterprise exec, it's once again going to be about money, right? If they already have this stuff enabled and their IT executive can walk up and say, hey, we have a SIP phone just by pressing a button or buying some new handsets for very little money, stuff like that, then they're going to say yes to it. If it comes back saying, no, the FCC has decided we're going to use this whole new protocol, it's going to cost us a huge fortune to upgrade everything, then it's going to fall on deaf ears, right? That's the usual answer. It's all about cash.
Right. Okay. Karl, I want to give you one last question, and that is...
Well, it's not about cash. It's about risk.
Okay, that was going to be the question. Why is the FCC so interested in pushing this? Because I mean, I've been reading some of the literature that you linked me to, and it seemed as if they understand the issues with SIP. There's enough people at the FCC who understand. That you don't think they do?
Oh, no. I mean, I'll give you a story. When when FTP software was around, they had a product, TCP stack. They had a competitor, NetManage. Well, one day, and people would buy a whole set of NetManage stuff, deploy it, and then to be happy as clams, they'd be running solid infrastructure in their company. What FTP software did was they looked at IP and said, oh, if we fragment packets, you can send the fragments in the reverse order as an optimization, because on the receiving end, you don't know how much buffers to allocate until you get the last fragment. So they changed their code, so it sent the last fragment first. Absolutely compliant with the IP RFCs. No variation, no illegality about it whatsoever. You deploy one copy of the FTP software code in an enterprise that was running the NetManage, every node in the NetManage devices went down. So companies that had bought NetManage, as soon as they brought in one piece of FTP software code, their pre-existing infrastructure crashed. Now, SIP has that potential to it. You can go out and buy a phone system from Cisco or whomever, install it and be happy as a clam. Then 2 years down the pipe, you'll buy a piece of SIP phone from somebody else. And it may bring down every one of your other devices because the dialogue it speaks, which can be completely compliant, will be a dialogue that triggers flaws in the pre-existing SIP infrastructure. Now, this can happen with any protocol, but with SIP, it is far more likely than any other protocol because SIP invites weak implementations, because SIP is so complicated, it has so many options that no implementer can reasonably, or even if they try, cannot test all of the variations. And so we're just inviting failures. So if somebody looks at a cheap SIP system, installs it, and happy for 2 years, 2 years down the line, they may discover that their installed phone system just completely goes down the toilet.
Karl, thank you. Thank you for bringing us up to date on what I think is going to be a brewing thing among the enterprise community. As this moves closer and closer to being a reality, I think people are going to start challenging on the FCC on perhaps updating to a different standard. Karl, really quickly, tell the Twite right. Where can they find you? What are you working on?
Oh, well, I'm at Inner Working Labs, and we test implementations of protocols for robustness in the face of adverse conditions, meaning noise on the line, or slightly different dialects of protocols, or radically different dialects of protocols, which is closer to an actual hostile attack. And we find that most of the internet protocol implementations are like duct tape and baling wire. And SIP is one of which is so important for our national infrastructure that exceptional care should be taken that we get it right.
Karl, thank you for joining us. That's Karl AUERBACH from the Interworking Labs, and we'll have him back whenever we need a super, super expert. Now, we are going to jump into our next bit, which is a little different. It's not quite the fare that we have on Twite, which has me excited. We're going to be looking specifically at screencasting and at capturing content for sharing among the enterprise. But before we do that, let's take a moment to talk about our next sponsor. You know them, you love them, they've been with us since the beginning. It's RingCentral. Now, when we built this studio, we decided that we wanted to put everything in the cloud. We had been telling our audience that it's okay to be in the cloud, so why wouldn't we do the same thing? Why wouldn't we dog food? We wanted to store our documents in the cloud. We wanted to hold meetings in the cloud. We wanted our email in the cloud, and we didn't want a big old chunky PBX hogging up the basement. So when Russell, our IT guy, told us that we could get all the features of a PBX without the hardware, without the maintenance, without all that gear running throughout the building, well, it was a no-brainer. We love RingCentral. There are zero startup costs, no PBX hardware to install or maintain. And now RingCentral has launched meetings. So in addition to all that we love about RingCentral, receiving voicemails through our email, sending and receiving fax messages from our smartphones, the auto receptionist who greets our callers and announces employees and department extensions, now with meetings, we can host face-to-face meetings in high definition and share desktop or documents with anyone, anytime, anywhere, on any device. Meetings makes RingCentral the single best business solution on the market today. Now, here's what we want you to do. We want you to try for yourself if RingCentral might be the solution for your business needs. RingCentral offers all-inclusive pricing under $25 per month per user. You can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial, and they have a special offer for my listeners. When you buy one desk phone, you get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. So call this number, designated for my listeners, 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. One more time, just in case your SIP failed, 800-543-9980. Or you can go to ringcentral.com and use the promo code TWIT. That's ringcentral.com, promo code TWIT. And we thank RingCentral for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Let's get on to our next guest, Mr. Troy Stein from TechSmith. Troy, thank you for coming on the program.
You kidding? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, Troy, as I mentioned before, TechSmith is not normally the kind of guest that we have on This Week in Enterprise Tech. We're really big into hardware and software and the services that drive a network. But TechSmith is a little bit different. Can you explain to the folks at home what TechSmith does?
Sure. So TechSmith is a 25-year-old software company. We have, after 25 years, we're kind of an overnight success. We develop software that enables people to scale their support and their training so that they don't have to hire as many people and they can support more than they could otherwise. Our software records your screen, and it makes it possible for you to share whatever you know. Maybe it's a network diagram, maybe it's how to record a tutorial about the new Office or whatever it is that you want to actually show people. And then it delivers that by way of video because our world is a video world.
Right, right. Now, I have to admit, I'm a big fan of Camtasia, of TechSmith software. I use it for screencasting all the time. In fact, if you've ever watched one of my reviews on Before You Buy or my segments on Know-How, most likely there was a little bit of Camtasia in there because it is the software that I choose to take information from my screen and teach others about it. Cheebert, I know that you're also a big fan of TechSmith, especially at a university. Where do you find yourself using the software?
You know, the whole concept of screencasting has been great. You know, I can have a lecturer go and pre-record a lecture if he's going to be on sabbatical or traveling and he's not going to have the ability to do a video conference. But more importantly, it's more than just capturing the screen. This is what a lot of people keep forgetting. You can not only capture a screen, but you can also say, for instance, in PowerPoint, if you've taken the time to actually go and stick the notes into the PowerPoint, when you render it for the web page, you can capture the webcam, you can capture the system audio, you can capture external audio with a nice USB microphone. But most importantly, you can also capture the PowerPoint information. So when I render it and say, put it out to flash for on the web, it could actually play back the notes like a closed caption line. Very, very powerful, especially when you have a lot of foreign language students like the University of Hawaii.
Yeah. Oliver, let me ask you about this. It used to be that if you wanted to do training in an enterprise, maybe a small to medium business, the norm was you would go down to the user's computer, down to their office, or maybe you'd get a couple of people together and you'd show them your screen. You'd guide them through, you'd answer their questions, you'd try to make them follow your instructions because it was just too difficult to do over the phone. It was too difficult to do remotely. That changes when we start having easy-to-use screencasting tools, right? Because I can actually show people who may be separated from me by thousands of miles exactly what's going on in my screen. I could include things like a camera so that they could actually see what I'm doing. I could have my own audio or audio piped in from somebody else. This is a different type of sharing information, yes? This is not just video conferencing. This is not just a Skype call. This is something else.
Are you asking a question? Yes, it is very much something else. It's also very popular. I'm not, you know, if you guys are coming at this, meaning you, Padre, only now, you're missing. You've been missing marketing for quite a while.
Okay, so tell me about that. What was it like the first time marketing was able to get a hold of software that does this?
Dude,
I think, go ahead,
sorry,
Oliver.
Go.
No,
I thought it was talking to me. Go.
We've been very fortunate so that there are companies that you would imagine would use it. So the Adobes, the Microsoft, the Apples of the world, when they want to promote their products, they have to have people believe them. And frankly, seeing is believing. And so they use them a lot for the promotion of their products, and others who use it just to save money because fewer people have to call when more people know how to use the software. And so the tutorials actually work quite well.
All right. Troy, let me ask you, what are some of the most common pratfalls when people start doing screencasting? I see this all the time in this business. People who make really, really, really boring screen captures or screencasts. What are the things that people should keep in mind if they're starting to use this technology?
Be brief, brother, be brief.
Okay, brief is always good, yes.
So I think keeping it short is always beneficial. But I think I would elevate that question one layer up, which is, yes, there's a tactical question, right? How do you not be boring? And, you know, being short, being visual, and then being done is always helpful. I think the issue is sometimes cultural, that some organizations say, well, the training department will make those. Yeah, they know everything. And in reality, the reason that we have guests on is because there's expertise everywhere. And so for people saying, well, we'll just have this one department make them, I think they're losing out on expertise. And that's, a big issue for CEOs, is where are we going to get the skills needed in 2014? And oftentimes it's actually resident within the company, but they're not leveraging it, in part because for a while, there hasn't been the tool that makes it possible for people to share what they know.
Okay. Troy, we've got people in our chat room right now who are, they've come up with a few decent comments. We've got, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your nickname. Pick a nickname that's easier to pronounce. But he's saying that, well, Fraps works just as well. In fact, a few of them are suggesting competing products
Sure.
that kind of copy some of the functionality that I could get out of Camtasia, TechSmith's software. Yeah. But so I guess the question to you would be, who is your user? Who uses Camtasia, and what do they use it for?
We're very fortunate that we have good diversity, if you will. Fraps is a great application. From recording gaming is fantastic, high frame rates, all the rest. Our user base tends to be Fortune 500, education, small business, and we're pretty balanced between those. Fundamentally, they're using it to share what they know, make people smarter. And so we've got folks that are using that from a marketing perspective, as you might imagine. As Brian was pointing out, it's used to record a lecture, in some cases replace a lecture so that you can do more and better stuff in class. We've had people who are doing things like flipping their classroom, or you've got even individual users like Sal Khan, who makes the Khan Academy, using our products to corporations who are making their own Khan Academy or their own series of videos for training purposes. Yeah.
Cheebert, what about you? At the university level, you must see some creative uses of screen recording, screen capture. I believe at one point you called it a corporate memory.
Yeah, it's the problem is you're going to have some really, really great lecturers, and you're going to have some really, really great guest lecturers, or you've got a really great lecturer that's getting ready to retire. In fact, one of the things that's happening this semester is you've got this amazing, amazing geologist that's getting ready to retire, and he's actually moving out of the country. He's going to go back home, I think it was to Sweden. And so the geology department is going, how are we going to capture this corporate memory? And the cool thing is Camtasia is really easy to use. Now, one of the things that we're doing here on the screen is someone's going through and teaching how to do some different types of photo manipulation. This is really, really common of what kinds of things people use Camtasia for. It's consistent. The interface is very, very similar between the Mac and the Windows. I can move project files back and forth within limits, and so forth. But the best part about Camtasia, I think, is the fact that you can download it, use it for free for a while, and if you really like it, you can go and buy the license. There is nothing crippled. It just stops working after a certain amount of time. Now, one of the other things that I've done in my lab is not every student can always afford a full license. So I've gone to Camtasia Relay so that within the system, the students can actually run Camtasia Relay from a USB dongle on a Mac or a Windows machine, record their sessions, and then it'll upload over an SSL link back to the server that handles the rendering and also upload. It can upload through FTP or SFTP up into a server, or you can throw it up to iTunes U or YouTube or so forth. It's a very powerful way of providing screen capture tools to all my students without having to go and blow a license on each and every one. The license is at the server. Pretty cool stuff. So what I wanted to do is, there's been a few changes. I haven't had the money to update my Relay for a while. Troy, I'm kind of curious, what kinds of directions are you guys going with Relay? There's a whole bunch of big changes that TechSmith was talking about moving Relay further and further into the corporate arena.
You will see something this week about that. I can't say too much, but the timing is quite nice. So thanks for that, Andre. But we are trying to make it so that a couple things. One is it continues to get simpler, even though Relay is super simple, like big red easy button, simple. We are making it ever more easy as well as ever more mobile so that people can capture stuff wherever they are, stuff from the desktop, stuff from the real world, and then combine it and publish it. And what is, I think, going to be really unique is that you'll actually know who watched your videos and how well they understood it.
Oliver, let me throw over to you for a second here, because I have heard Camtasia Suite being called the Adobe Creative Suite, but for enterprise people, but for corporate people. And the idea behind that was, yeah, you could do everything that you do inside of Camtasia with Photoshop or with Adobe Premiere. But the difference was those are designed, those tools, those Adobe tools are designed for creative professionals. Camtasia was designed more for people in business, in the enterprise, who had a very specific use case, and that was presenting products, presenting their services to an audience, either inside or out. My question to you would be, do people understand that? We've got a couple of people in the chat room who are saying, oh, but you know, Camtasia is expensive. Camtasia doesn't do everything that these other tools do. Do you think there's an awareness that there's a specific set of creativity that hovers around marketing and internal communications that isn't really well served by many companies?
Wow, you meandered around that one. So you're asking, do people know that this is a new discipline and that this tool applies to that? Is that your question?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because a lot of people would look at something I do with Camtasia, say, okay, I screen captured. Say, well, we could do that with Fraps. And let's say I did some editing so that it was, the presentation was a bit tighter. They said, well, I could do that with Premiere. They said, well, look, I just cleaned up some of the images that we use in the presentation. Well, I could do that with Photoshop. Is there an understanding that it's not just finding the tools that could do that, it's finding a single tool that could do all those things in a way that's easier for maybe a non-creative professional to do?
Not much. I will say that in a large Redmond software company that shall remain nameless, the general pattern for Camtasia, which does get used, is A, sticker shock. So let's download a free type program. B, serious disappointment with the open source free version. Back to get the budget to buy Camtasia, use it, and do something that's satisfactory, even though it's not being done by a, as you say, professional creative person, right? It's being done by somebody not so bright like me. Then there's option C, which is you have a ton of budget and you kick it out to a vendor, in which case, that's a specialized person and you expect a much higher level of quality than you could do off your own desk, and you don't really care what they use.
Okay. Troy, let me go back to you. I'm sorry. I know Cheebert was trying to get you fired because he wanted you to talk about Relay. I know you can't talk about Relay. I know that there's...
I can talk about what it is now.
Okay.
But we're sort of taking it to the next level.
Yeah,
but,
okay. So I'm gonna say a few things, and perhaps you could either nod or shake your head. I would assume that a next generation suite like Relay would be far better at utilizing some centrally located resources to do what we would typically do with really powerful desktops. In other words, I could do presentation capture, I could do presentation editing without having to have, I don't know, a PC on my desk, but rather using something closer to a thin client.
So what we have with TechSmith Relay now, let me try to explain that, is we've simplified the recording product so that it's really easy for everybody just to record what's on your computer. As Brian pointed out, it records your camera, it records your screen, your voice, etc., and then it sends it off to a server. That server converts it into different file formats. It converts your audio into searchable text, so that if you needed to find out, where was that video where he said SIP 7 times? Well, there you go, and it jumps you right to that video.
What?
So, right.
I'm sorry. No, so back up to that. Sorry, what was that? You can do in-video searching?
Yeah. Yeah, so it does. It uses the same engine that BBC uses for searchable speech to text, and then it produces the video. It publishes it to wherever you need to, sends you back an email, says, "Hey, it's all done." So all the hard work, if you will, is done there. There's not a lot of editing there, but quite frankly, for a lot of people, they don't need to edit. And while we love Camtasia Studio, and it is a fantastic recording and editing and publishing suite, it is, in that regards, it's sort of that high-end system. There is a need out there for so many people to share what they know. They just don't need to do much more than start, stop, and send. So we built that. The next step is for us is to simplify it just a few steps further, make it more mobile, and then to make it a little bit more scalable, if you will.
Okay, I like that. I actually, G-Bird hadn't told me about that functionality built into Relay. The ability to upload my video and have it searchable, searched through by the resources on an exterior box, an outside box. That sounds very, very positive to me. I like that. G-Bird, let me throw over to you for a second. I know that you've been really big on Camtasia. You've wanted to have TechSmith on the show for quite a while. We've never been able to make the calendar work. When you think about a world of virtual desktops, when you think about a world filled with thin clients, when you think about a world in which more processing power is centralized than ever before, is this kind of what you're hoping for?
It's not so much. VDI is, there's going to be a lot of things happening in the VDI arena, but what we're talking about here is more back end, front end. I can capture my Windows or my Mac machine. I'm told someday, really, really soon, Chrome. The idea is to be able to capture what's on your screen, be able to throw it up to a back-end server that handles the rendering. Not only does it just render, you can actually create job profiles. So you can say, I want QuickTime, I want AVI, I want MP4, and I want Flash. And I want them uploaded to this FTP directory, or I want them up on YouTube. I can actually combine lots of different profiles together so that I can take a lot of the effort out of uploading and rendering. So that means even if you've got a student with a really cheap little netbook that could barely play the video, they can still record it, still upload it, and still produce some fairly decent documentation for corporate memory, for their project, or today's lecture.
All right. Troy, I'm going to let you have the last word here. If we always talk about this hypothetical 10,000-seat enterprise network. If we had our 10,000-seat corporation and they were looking at a way to make it easy to do training, or perhaps a way to get their product out more, what would you suggest to them within your product line? What is your vision of a Camtasia-powered communication system?
We believe that the seeing is believing, right? So in terms of communicating internally, that happens best when people can see what you're talking about. I can write you 1,000-paragraph emails, but it's not going to do the same as if I show you a quick video of what I'm talking about, either in terms of explanation or maybe a question. So for me, and I've worked for Cisco Systems, and it was a fantastic experience being at that large enterprise company. And even there, we had to train all kinds of people. The expertise is everywhere. So for me, I would look at a forthcoming product that we have coming out. It simplifies it so that you could record from any computer, any mobile device for the most part, and it plays back, and it can be integrated with your internal system so that you can communicate internally with incredible efficiency and clarity.
Got it. Well, thank you very much for coming on and actually sharing a little bit of knowledge. Again, I like doing these sorts of episodes every once in a while where we bring on a guest, we bring on a company that isn't the typical fare that we have on Twite. I think the last time we did something like this, we had a marketing company come on and explain how best a company could show off what they could do. Now, before we go, I want to thank our panelists, starting with you, Brian. Tell the Twite right really quickly, what are you up to? I know you've got some Maker Faire news coming up.
Yes, we've got a mini Maker Faire coming up in Honolulu on March 15th at Iolani School. Right now, I'm actually using Camtasia. I've been going back and forth. We've been recording interviews for a new director position. And so we needed to be able to record not only the committee and the person on the Skype interview, but also, whatever's going on. And that way it gives us a fig leaf if something someone should cry foul during the process. So that's another really good use, being able to document exactly how you're asking questions.
Yeah. How about you, Oliver? Are you still there? Yes.
Yep.
Our favorite man, our favorite Jiminy Cricket with teeth. Tell us, where can the Dwight Wright find you? What are you working on? I know that you're moving back out east, but any exciting news?
Well, I got clobbered in a Skype interview with Bryan's University, so not going to be going there. I wanted to. Other than that, there are some projects with InfoWorld I'm not able to talk about just yet, but as soon as I can, I will certainly share them here.
Yeah. And, I know that they can find you at Infoworld.com, but is there another place where the Dwight Wright can actually find out what you're doing? Do you tweet at all? Do you have a Facebook page? Where can people who want to be your fans find you, or are you just going to be an enigma?
Not really about being an enigma. It's about being way too lazy to tweet. If it's something people really wanted, but hear my stream of consciousness thoughts, then A, you need help, and B, I suppose I could look into it. But no, currently there is no place you can see me except here.
Show title, Too Lazy to Tweet.
Yeah.
And Troy Stein, thank you for coming on. I use your software with regularity, so it is nice to be able to talk a little bit about it to everyone else on the interwebs. Can you tell the Dwight Wright where they can find you, where they can find your company's products? And I also know that the free downloads are available, so please give them those links.
Sure. So if you want to take a look at the products, they're at techsmith.com. And you can download the free trials of all of our software. As was mentioned before, they're fully functioning, so they're not limited in any way, and use them and enjoy. I think we've had some companies who have saved thousands of dollars without ever buying the software, and that's fine too. Use it and enjoy the product. So if you want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter at Troy Stein.
Use it in good health. And I also want to thank you. That's right. You, the listener, the watcher, the viewer, the person who comes back week after week to listen to the best dang podcast, or I guess enterprise class podcast in the world. That's according to a survey of 9 out of 10 popes. Now, we want to give you a little something for coming back each and every single week, for sharing time with us. And so what we'd like you to do is to visit our show page at twit.tv/Twyet. There you'll be able to find downloads for all of our episodes in all the different formats, and find a way to have each and every single episode automatically downloaded to your device of choice. Do you want it on your iPhone? You can get it. How about your iPad? Of course. How about your Android tablet or phone, your PC, your Mac, your laptop, your desktop? It's all right there. Also, did you know that we have a YouTube page? That's right. Go to youtube.com/Twyet if that's how you prefer to consume your media. We're all about choice. And while you're there, why not subscribe and join the community? Help us get the word out about Twyet. Also, you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/PadreSJ. Follow me there, and not only will you find out what's going to be on the next episode of Twyet, but you'll be able to follow me in my daily life. You'll be able to find out what I'm going to do for all the different shows here on the Twit TV network that I'm a part of. For Know How, for Before You Buy, for Tech News Tonight, for Coding 101. It's all there, Padre SJ. I also want to thank everyone who comes here every day on Mondays at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time to watch us live. If you go to live.twit.tv, not only will you be able to see the show live, but you'll see everything that doesn't go into the finished recording. You get to see pre-show, you get to see post-show, you get to see the bloopers. In other words, you get to be part of the live experience that is Twit. We're not just a network, we're a community. And if you want to be part of that community, and if you are watching live, why not jump into our chat room at irc.twit.tv. There you'll be able to talk to me during the show. I actually pull questions from the chat room. You'll be able to talk to some of the brightest trolls, some of the most brilliant engineers, and some of the funniest geeks in geekdom. Finally, I want to thank everyone here at the Brick House who made this possible, to Carson, my super producer, and to Jason Howell, who, you know what, I'm not even going to pretend. I know you do the best dang Android podcast in the world. Tell us about it.
Oh, what? Oh, hey, where am I?
It was all a dream. It was all a dream.
Twit.tv/AAA for All About Android. That's right, every Tuesday, talking about Androids. There you go. That's all you need to know.
Androids. I love it. I'm Father Robert BALLECER, and I want to remind you that if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep Twyet.